Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's dive right into this, because we are looking at something completely mind-bending today. Have you ever wondered what it would actually be like if the universe suddenly became an absolute servant to your mind? I'm talking about this incredibly intoxicating scenario where the universe listens to and instantly grants your every single thought, no matter how large or small. I mean, from willing traffic to clear up on your commute to literally becoming a billionaire overnight. It sounds like the ultimate fantasy, right? Well, as we're about to see, the human mind is a deeply complicated place. I want you to imagine waking up one totally ordinary morning. You stretch, you look out the window, and you realize the impossible has already started happening. The life you've only ever whispered about, the success you only saw in your mind's eye, those places you only ever visited in your sleep, it all begins to materialize right in front of you. You are the main character in this immersive psychological journey, stepping straight into a world where reality itself bends just to obey your imagination.
So let's explore when dreams become reality and the beginning of the miracle.
In this first phase, the magic actually starts quite small. It doesn't totally overwhelm you right out of the gate. Instead, it just feels like this beautiful, totally harmless series of lucky coincidences. But then we see a rapid escalation. Step 1, small miracles. You go to sleep hoping your phone won't die, and suddenly it's just permanently sitting at 100%. You crave a specific meal, and bam, it just appears on your kitchen table warm and fresh. Then you start kind of testing the waters with step 2, intentional commands. You imagine having just a bit more cash, and a forgotten envelope of money magically appears in a drawer. You wish for confidence, and immediately your posture changes and people really start listening to you. Finally, we hit step 3, global shifts. Impossible career opportunities arrive literally out of nowhere. Doors you knocked on months ago just fly open. Your life hits fast forward just to keep up with your desires. Every dream becomes a door, and every door opens. Now, what's really interesting about this is how incredibly fast human behavior adapts to this euphoric high. Very quickly, you'd probably stop sleeping out of sheer tiredness and start sleeping like a kid on Christmas Eve. You would literally train yourself to imagine exactly what you want before closing your eyes, carefully curating your lists. Why? Because your thoughts are no longer just private musings, they're literal commands to the universe.
But here is where we hit the danger of perfection and the hidden contract of our own desires.
This is where the music stops. Suddenly, you realize getting absolutely everything you want acts like a binding contract, and those hidden clauses, they only arrive after the initial excitement has totally faded. Sure, admiration arrives, but without any genuine understanding. You're known, but no one actually knows who you really are. Wealth pours in, but it brings intense jealousy, crushing expectations, and, of course, fake friends. You experience a total loss of personal privacy simply because you're too important now. And eventually, everything settles into this state of meaningless perfection where literally nothing surprises you anymore.
Think about the extreme contrast between these two states of existence. A life with friction means traffic, delays, challenges, and rejections. Sure, it sounds super annoying, but it actually produces strength, discovery, and appreciation. It gives life its texture. Contrast that to a life of perfection. When doors open before you even touch them, and plans absolutely never fail, it quickly feels empty, it feels strange, and ultimately it becomes a psychological prison, because without resistance, there is absolutely no strength.
Consider this for a moment. A dream that removes every obstacle may also remove every reason to feel alive. When ordinary days start to feel way too small and far too easy, you develop a genuinely dangerous addiction to control. You start asking for bigger, more absurd things just to feel a tiny spark of excitement, but you end up feeling completely numb. You're getting absolutely everything you ever requested, and you realize that it is actually much more frightening than failure ever was.
Let's move to and see how this builds into when nightmares come true. The true dark side of imagination.
Here is the terrifying climax of this whole suspenseful journey. If every dream comes true, then every nightmare is also a dream. You see, the universe isn't just filtering for your best intentions or your happiest thoughts. It is also actively listening to your deeply buried fears. It hears your passing insecurities. It registers every single accidental late-night what-if thought that flashes through your brain when you are at your absolute most vulnerable.
Let's look at the real-world consequences of these uninvited thoughts. A sudden irrational fear of failure, it instantly becomes a real-world event. A brief moment of anxiety over losing someone manifests physically right before your eyes, before you can even stop it.
Bizarre, intrusive thoughts literally erase people's names from historical records just because they annoyed you in traffic. A bad mood in the morning ripples into a disastrous, reality-bending week. And honestly, the scariest part? These random images sneaking in at night start having immediate consequences before you can even realize which stray thought caused which specific disaster.
This brings us to a really profound realization. Your own mind becomes the source of both your greatest blessings and your deepest disasters. Every single second becomes incredibly dangerous. A simple passing insecurity can instantly rewrite your physical reality. Just imagine the sheer terror of knowing a fleeting bad thought could alter the very fabric of your world forever. There's no undo button. Which brings us to the burden of control and the exhausting reality of policing your own mind.
Faced with the wildly destructive power of your own subconscious, you're now burdened with the sheer exhaustion of constant self-surveillance. You begin a rapid psychological descent. Phase 1 was the magic, right? The early euphoria of having wishes granted. Phase 2 became addiction, where you entirely depended on dreams for your baseline reality. Phase 3 spirals into paranoia, that constant, exhausting self-surveillance, where you police every thought. And finally, Phase 4, the trap. Sleep, which was once this magical playground of possibility, becomes a place of absolute terror. Because sleep is when the uninhibited mind wanders, and it's when the world is listening the most closely.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when, in a desperate bid to fix things, you try to project your mind outward to save humanity. You cure sickness, you end war, you feed everyone. It's beautiful. But there is a massive cost to this ease. A world without suffering quickly becomes a world of numbness and total loss of purpose. Imagination stops being a spark and becomes a cold, automated machine. When every problem is solved instantly, people literally forget how to fight for one another. The human spirit, which is fundamentally built for seeking and risking, just begins to wither away.
Fulfillment is not the same as happiness. That right there is the philosophical punchline of this entire thought experiment. A dream can absolutely give you money, but it can't give you peace. It can give you endless comfort, but not meaning. You can have every object, every achievement, and every fantasy realized instantly, but you will still have a strange, echoing hole inside your chest if your soul doesn't learn how to live without constantly chasing the next shiny prize.
Finally, we arrive at the final dream, waking up to reality.
Let's take a collective breath here. Walk through this final night with me. You close your eyes one last time, and instead of asking for more power or more wealth or more perfection, you ask the universe for understanding. You look for the dream of balance. You dream for enough rather than everything. You dream of the ability to just enjoy life without needing to control every single corner of it. You ask for a peace that doesn't demand its own way, and you genuinely seek to experience real, unmanufactured love. Ultimately, you're asking for the wisdom to know the difference between fantasy and destiny.
And then you wake up. Just a sunrise, just a room, just a quiet morning. Imagine the profound, overwhelming relief of waking up without magical coincidences happening every single second. There are no impossible gifts falling from the sky, just a normal, grounded reality. And for the very first time in a really long time, an ordinary, quiet morning feels like it is completely, utterly enough.
Sometimes, the miracle is learning which wishes are worth keeping. The real dream, as it turns out, was never actually about controlling the world. It was about understanding yourself deeply enough to choose well. It's having the clarity to see that a perfect life isn't a life without flaws. It's a life where the heart knows what actually matters before the dream even arrives.
So the crucial point is, will you learn to be thankful for reality itself? Did this journey change how you view your own imperfect but totally beautiful life? When we strip away the desperate desire for absolute control, we're left with the mystery, the patience, and the incredibly exciting possibilities of a real lived experience. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.